Welcome to Dojo Live, the place where top minds in travel and hospitality check in to share insights and breakthroughs shaping the industry. Brought to you by Encora, your trusted partner for AI, cloud, and data-driven innovation. Enjoy your stay. Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Encora's Dojo Live, where we have candid conversations with industry leaders who are tackling the biggest technology challenges in travel and hospitality. I am your host, Kim Lantis, and today we're diving into episode number 7 of our series, Unlocking Revenue Insights from Hospitality's RMS Leaders, discussing today how revenue managers can leverage benchmarking for smarter decisions. And here to share all of her insights on the topic is our guest, Claudia Alvarado Cruz, who is Senior Analytics Manager at STR. Claudia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for having me the Lucky 7 episode.
Lucky number 7. That is absolutely right. No, thank you for joining us. I know that the history here with knowing members of the Encora team is long-standing with you. Almost a lucky number 7. I think you're going on year 8 now.
Yeah.
I love it. But we know you, but our audience might not know you as well as we do. Claudia, to kick us off today, if you could please tell us a bit about your story, your background, your role at STR, and a bit about what makes you excited about the work that you're doing.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Claudia Alvarado. I'm from Honduras, living in Colorado, so long way from home. I studied hospitality management, worked in hotel operations for a little bit, and then went back to school for a master's in business analytics. So this job at SCR is what you will call the ideal combination of my degrees. So yeah, like what gets me excited the most, just turning a lot of data into actionable insights. Knowing that whatever task, be it simple or intricate, somehow has an impact on the industry and hopefully makes the life easier for those out there on the ground.
I love it. That's beautiful. You chose some of my favorite words there, actionable, impact. And I really like what you're doing at SDR. STR is the industry as a whole, which is, I think, fantastic. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Now, talking about STR, you are well known in the industry. For those of the audience who might not know who you are, what you do, or be familiar with that, can you give us just a quick overview of who STR is, what you do, and how it supports hoteliers and others?
Yeah, STR has been around for about 30 years. Basically specialized in hospitality data benchmarking, analytics, and insights. So we collect data directly from the hotels. We have about 87,000 hotels around the world providing us data. So yeah, they trust us with this. So because of that, we have very strict guidelines on how to protect the confidentiality of this information. And because of that, as a result, we are a trusted source of information for our clients. So now with all that data, what we do is compile it in different reports. We do articles, webinars, presentations, but we have a platform where clients can go and access this data, and they can basically compare their performance to that of their competition. And just from there, they can strategize and go at it.
I love it. I love it. Talking about strategy, talking about data and all these numbers, if we're talking about the hotelier specifically, one of those most familiar KPIs is RevPAR, right? But are
The
there
famous
any
RevPAR.
deeper, the name is RevPAR. Are there any deeper metrics, however, that revenue managers in particular should be paying attention to? And, about the benchmarking that you're talking about, what does that do to make some of these deeper metrics more possible?
Yeah, so we are launching a P&L program. So we are going beyond the top line. So we're tracking now not only the revenues from rooms, but from all the different departments, from food and beverage, other departments. Like if a hotel has spa, golf, like we're tracking that, as well as the expenses. So that way, our clients know how the data that comes in is trickling down all the way to the bottom line. So we are offering reports with GOPAR, so gross operating profit per available room, or like total revenue. So that way they can see what other revenue streams how are they contributing to the total of their performance.
I love it. What was that? TOPAR is what you're calling it?
TREPAR. We do have
TOPAR.
TOPAR, which
Okay.
is the total operating expenses. Not my favorite, but it is what it is.
All right, all right. I love it. Or always here to learn a new acronym. Matter of fact, I got schooled 2 weeks ago with by Christy White with Groups 360. And she shared the difference between an acronym, and now I can't even remember the other one. But apparently, it's not an acronym. It's called something else.
Hmm.
Christy, I owe it to you. I'll put that here on the comments in LinkedIn or something.
Yeah, when you remember.
But we're talking about what benchmarking makes possible. You know, all of these different, more deeper elements. You mentioned food and beverage, among others. And I think that makes me think that data, right? Data can tell a different story depending also on how you analyze it. So I'm wondering, how should hoteliers be thinking about benchmarking at different levels? So one of the things, and we've got it in our tagline for today's show, is the comp set. So if we're looking at things like comp set versus market versus regional versus global, I think this is something that you at STR really helps us wrap our heads around. Can you maybe walk through what each of those are, why they're useful, and what kinds of insights can be uncovered by looking at data through these different levels, through these different lenses?
Right. So it's kind of like with pretty much everything in life, right? You kind of need a little bit of context to build the entire story. So if we start at like the high level, we could do like by the continent, subcontinent, or country. And with those numbers, with those trends, we can see the impact like macroeconomic factors have on it, like
Mm,
politics, tariffs, and all that fun stuff. Um, and that can affect the trends on the longer term, but like maybe not the day to day
yeah.
for a hotel. So that's where like comparing to the market, some market, and even more especially on the concept level, that's where that comes in a little bit more relevant. So choosing a concept is very important, and that's why we encourage clients to work closely with the representatives here at STR so that they can choose the right concept. Because if they choose one that is like they are always outperforming them. It's just like playing a video game with all the superpowers and playing at the easy level. Like, yeah, you're gonna win, but like, are you
Where in my case,
really?
I was the younger three siblings, so I got to play the video games with the controller unplugged, which is just even worse.
Well, see, there you go. So you kind of get it. So yeah, so like that is why like selecting the right concept is like, are you even having the controller connector or not? Like, what level are you playing at? So yeah, like we recommend them having like kind of like an even concept, like where they're performing about the same level. We also recommend having like a aspirational concept, kind of like where they see themselves
Mm.
few months, a few years from now, so that they can see how these other hotels are performing, like what are they doing, so that they can kind of adjust their strategy. Again, we do protect the confidentiality, so we don't tell them exactly what each hotel is doing. We're
Okay.
aggregating
Mhm.
the data and then can see kind of like the trends from that. But yeah, like seeing like what the hotel across the street is doing, like what the ones in the neighborhood are doing. Are they getting more demand than my hotel is doing? Like, what would that be? Should we adjust our rates? Should we have more offerings? Like, what do they have on site? Like, do they have any restaurants? Do they have just like like to go market and stuff like that?
Well, that's really interesting. I like how you can be like, this is my level, but also aspire to quote unquote level up,
Right.
if you would like to. What are some of the questions that you encourage hoteliers to ask themselves or have the answers to when they're trying to identify comp sets or where they belong, what level they're currently at?
Yeah, so like back in the day, I actually used to do concept consulting. So we will look at the hard data, like the size of the hotels, their location, the age of the hotel. That has a big impact
Mm,
on the performance. But also, it's like, is this for example, an airport hotel? Should you compare to others in that airport or to hotels in other airports that are like similar, that have similar characteristics to yours? So this was another this was also part of the conversation, like how do you want to compare yourself? Do you want to compare yours to the neighbors because those are the ones you're seeing, or do you
mhm.
want to see how other ones similar to you are performing somewhere else?
Interesting. And I suppose that's also based on goals that they have laid out for themselves.
Right, based on goals and also comparing to others besides your next door neighbors becomes very important with P&L data because some hotels may not have the same offerings as you, so you are not comparing apples to apples. So that's why it's
Hmm.
better to kind of look behind, like across the street, like look beyond and see what else is out there. Maybe there's a hotel that has like just like a mini bar like you do, or just like a small marketplace but has a lot of rooms like you do. So try to make it a little bit more comparable so that way your
Yeah.
performance, if you are outperforming like an equal enemy basically. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like it's not so much just who is next to you, it's like what do they offer and what do you offer, are you on the same level at that point.
Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense. And I think some of the overlap that we had just yesterday with Sabre, and with Matt Ben, he was talking about going beyond the room, thinking beyond the room, kind of going to what we were talking about at the beginning of today's show for the total revenue experience, how retailing solutions play into that, and getting creative, right? And what we have on site, what where I can make that revenue base come from all over my property, or what I might be able to add. And it seems to me that looking at these comp sets can also help with some of that creativity, right? To unlock what it's going to take to get to the next level.
Right, and creativity is definitely something that we have noticed in our data, especially as we dig into the P&L data. We're seeing some hotels finding alternate like revenue streams,
Hmm.
just to move away from just relying on rooms to bring in money into the operations. So that yeah, creativity is definitely a key word.
I love it. You think of creativity as being a uniquely human kind of trait. And maybe it is, but it makes me want to shift the conversation now around sort of this idea of AI, automation, something that is creativity part of this technology, but more how are those technologies playing a bigger role in revenue management? Curious as to your take on what's happening right now and how you see benchmarking and data analytics evolving with these types of technologies.
Yeah, so my take on AI is that, and this is from conversations that I've had with professors from my master's, and it's just like AI has been around for a while. It is just now becoming more relevant and like making headlines. So like a lot of these like forecasting approaches that we use, a lot of like just data visualization itself, like that relies on some kind of AI. It just used to be known by a different name. Now,
Uh,
how that may, yeah, basically like even just like text analysis and that kind of stuff that has existed for quite a while. It is just now because it is growing exponentially now with the technology, and that is why it is becoming more relevant. So honestly, I think it will be very interesting to see how teams are able to adopt this technology and make it easier on their day-to-day operations.
yeah.
Personally, I am using AI at the bare minimum, but just to kind of like make some of the tedious tasks done faster so that I can do more of the creative side of my job, and spend more time with that. So I think that's what most of these teams would also do, like at the hotel level. It's just kind of like use this technology to bypass some of the tedious tasks so they can uh, put in like their human high level expertise to better use.
I love it. So let's talk about having this information now. So once revenue managers or others from their teams have their hands on the type of data that STR is able to provide, how should they be using it? And on the flip side, if you could maybe share an example of a common misinterpretation of benchmarking data and how to avoid that. So let's talk about benchmarking data the right way and the wrong way.
So I think it kind of comes back to like our conversation of choosing the right concepts. Like if they have the right concept, they will be able to draw a lot of insights that are going to be helpful for the strategies. Like um, if they are choosing the wrong competitors, they may be saying adjusting their pricing strategies, charging even more, and then that's going to affect them negatively.
Mm-hmm.
Or the other way around, like they're dropping their prices too much, getting more people, but their bottom line is not gonna It's not going to
Yeah.
grow as expected. So the concept itself is important, but also looking at the bigger picture. So looking at what's going on in the market. Like, is the market itself performing in a healthy manner or not? And that also can help them steer, like, what goals are they going to set for themselves? How are they going to forecast their performance? So there are different ways, I guess, to benchmark in their own way, but it all comes
Mhm.
back to, like, to your concept. Are you comparing yourself to the right to the right people?
Yeah, yeah. Like, is there a way to know if you've got it right? Like, how do you know if this concept's spot on or not?
So we used to have a ComSci grade. We had developed a model to kind of like put a grade on how reliable it was. We are no longer using it as much, but you can just kind of tell. Like, you can select your concept for a while, and then if you're like consistently outperforming the concept by a lot, then that might be a red flag. Or if they are outperforming you, leaving you in the dust, also a
Mm,
red flag. So some tweaks might. So it can be a little bit of trial and error at first, but also that's where communication with your representative comes into play. It's like, talk also with your internal teams, with your marketing teams. What are they seeing? What hotels are coming into the conversation among their clients? And should we keep an eye on this one instead of this other one? What are they
mhm.
doing? Should we include them in our concept, kind of thing?
Oh. Now, I've been saying the word revenue manager a lot throughout today's conversation. So I guess my next question is around that particular role. And I'm wondering if it's true that benchmarking is or isn't just for those types of individuals, revenue managers. Who else are you seeing in the hotels or who can also benefit from this type of data that STR again provides? Um,
Yeah, so at the hotel level, we are seeing that the sales teams are using our data quite a bit as well. They are a little bit more fast moving teams than revenue managers. So perhaps they are seeing. Okay, going back a little bit, we have a product that is called Forward Star, and we track business on the books. So, like, booking trends. So, like, if the sales teams can see that there are like this many bookings, there's like a peak in booking them for certain dates, and they're not aware of any events, then they
mm,
can start doing the research and maybe do some promos to bring some of that demand their way. Same for marketing. Like, if they see that there's some event coming up, they can start working with the revenue managers and try to come up with a pricing strategy to get like the most optimal pricing for those days and stuff like that. So we are hoping that our data fosters more collaboration between these teams. But yeah, like, there are many ways in which other teams can use our data. Like, in the operations side, yeah, they can report back as to what products in their mini market sells the most, or what kind of offerings the clients are asking for. Like, do they really need the business center, or do they have any technology that people don't use, but like they don't have what people need, stuff like that. So it's just
mm.
like people with feet on the ground, like, they can report back to those that are closer to the decision making level.
I love it. And this your experience of seeing your clients utilizing your tools and your reports to foster collaboration across different departments, as you mentioned, sales, marketing, even operations. Do you see what works well to facilitate this collaboration? What kinds of dynamics, communication are teams utilizing to get the most out of this?
I think our newest offering is gonna make it even easier, because before we used to send like an Excel report, static
Mm,
data, and like that was the same for everyone. With our newest offering, it's gonna be more dynamic. Um, Employees at the different departments will get access to the data, and they can create their own reports to what is relevant for them. So if they don't need like all 60 columns, for example, of
right.
data, they can just like get the metrics that they're interested in, and then get that on the go. Or like look at the charts for, say, P&L, and then if it's somebody in the F&B department, they can just see what areas of the food and beverage is it like in-room dining, is it the mini bar, or what is it? So like the different teams will be able to just go straight to the data points, straight to the charts that they need, and then if they have like stand-up meetings and whatnot, like then they can chat and bring in their own insights and expertise in that.
You said the word chat, which made me think of GPT components. Is that something that you're looking toward? I mean, and the idea of not having to just look at reports and make heads and tails of them, but am I going to be able to ask, what, tell me this, and there it is in a conversational way?
Writing down the idea for for our tech team. At the moment, I don't know if it's in the works. At least at my level of the company and communication, I'm not aware of that. But like, I think that would be a really great addition to our offerings. Have some of those insights spelled out for you.
Absolutely. I agree because honestly, in my role, it has nothing to do with benchmarking or revenue management, but I do utilize, the generative AI, the GPT chat GPT component to help do
Right.
a lot of this works. And to your point on the creative side, and it makes you be able to do a little more with, less time, more things to do, and it's really cool. And I think it would be really, really fun in terms of the future of what's going on in the industry.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, for sure. Talking about the future. Now, you guys have extensive market data. You already said it, going from your local comm set to the continent to the entire planet. Let's talk about emerging trends. What kind of hospitality performance measures, or what are you seeing that hotels should be paying attention to right now? And are there kind of any surprises in that data?
I don't know if this will be surprises, but personally, I love tracking the impact of big events on the performance of the industry. So, good or bad, kind of like natural disasters, but also events like the Super Bowl, like those have big impacts on the markets. Sometimes it's a surprise because hotels sold for much more money than we thought they were going to be selling. So, those are really nice surprises. Um, we are seeing like some of the markets impacted by the hurricanes are still performing
Mhm.
really well. So that's kind of like the FEMA workers and all like,
Yeah.
um, yeah, remodeling crews and whatnot. Like that kind of helps drive the positive performance in those areas. Um, Remains to be seen what's going to happen in California, but we're seeing some demand peaks in certain areas, some droughts in other areas, depending on where they're based, on the location of the fires.
Hmm.
Um, Other trends we're seeing is a bifurcation. Just kind of like we've talked about it for several months now, how like luxury or high-end hotels are performing in a very healthy manner, whereas those like economy mid-scale hotels are still struggling to attract some of that demand. And it all just kind of comes down to income levels, right? Like discretionary income as well. So, like ultra luxury, they're doing great. People are still have the money to spend on that. But also, we're seeing groups in business demand starting to grow. So,
Hmm.
um, probably all those return to office mandates are also going to help boost some of this demand, which is good. And then we may also see some of that increase in the F&B revenues with more events coming into these hotels.
Right.
Um, yeah, so some of those like into the actual like performance itself. We also track pipeline projects, and it's been interesting to see a slight decline in projects like under construction. Not a whole lot of
Hmm.
that happening, but there has been a slight increase in final planning and planning. So people want to build, probably are holding off to see what's happening at the macroeconomic level, tariffs, cost of
And
materials and
yeah, how
whatnot.
much is lumber going to cost me?
Right. Yeah. So it would be interesting to see if some of that final planning ever like moves into under construction at some point or when that's going to
Yeah,
happen. So that is something that definitely keeping an eye on.
for sure. And food and beverages like omelets. Omelets are off the menu.
Second one, no more. That would be a
I'm
luxury
like, do we
offering.
laugh? Do we cry? Yeah, only eggs. Eggs to the luxury granola bars for everybody else. Are
So
there
true.
Are there any kind of global trends? Because I'm calling, several past Dojo Live shows, one of which I think it was with Custodio Barrios. Uh, Custodio, I forgot your last name wrong. I apologize. He was mentioning about a push east, countries like Saudi Arabia and others kind of really coming up. And then I recall when we had a conversation with Hostaway as well, we were talking about uh, global changes in terms of climate and how surprisingly for short-term rentals and stuff that they're seeing, more business further north as the springs or the summers stay hotter and for a longer amount of time people are going further north into Sweden, Norway, etc. Are there any trends like that you're also kind of picking up on?
Now that you mentioned like going north for for the summer, yeah, like we are just having a conversation with the team a few days ago about spring break destinations in Chicago made it into the list, and we're like, that might be a first or like a stretch, one or the other. So stuff like that is interesting. But one of the other trends, like kind of what you're saying about like countries like in the East, like Middle East or Asia,
Mhm.
um, we're seeing Asian countries kind of showing the growth in performance, kind of like at the same levels that the rest of the world was doing it post pandemic. So it's kind of like because they lifted their all their controls after the rest
Huh.
of the world did, they kind of were a little bit delayed in recovering their performance. So we're still kind of seeing some of that growth and about to start entering the normalization stage, which the rest of the world had entered like probably at the beginning of last year.
Mm.
So we are
All
seeing some
right.
of those trends. I cannot speak too much to the short-term rentals because we don't track that data. But yeah, like it's interesting to see what markets are going to show some growth during the spring break this year. So I guess I will
Mhm.
report back on that.
All right. Well, write that one down too. So you've got GPT components and
Yeah.
tracking short-term rentals.
Got some homework now.
Okay. All right. Homework for Claudia and the STR team. Yeah. All right. We've actually come now to the final minutes of our half hour, if you can believe that or not. So I believe for my last question, I'm going to be asking about um, for those hotels looking to get the most out of their benchmarking efforts, what are maybe the top three things they should focus on to drive real impact on their bottom line? Top line to drive impact on the bottom line.
So it's a summary, and I'm glad that some of these words kind of came up during the conversation. The first one that I had is choose the right concept. Like that will have a big impact on the kind of the quality of the decisions that you will make based on the data, and like just and also like zoom out. Don't
Mm,
lose track of the big picture. The second one is creativity, which you brought up, and when you said it, I was like, yes. It's kind of like change the menu, switch things up, find for different ways to cut down cost without compromising the quality of the
mm,
service. And just kind of like don't be afraid to move things around or like switch things up with the operations. Just like show the creativity and see what works. Like you can always reverse to how
yeah,
things were working before if
the
that.
benefits of tracking and benchmarking.
Exactly, the benefits of tracking everything, of having data on everything. Like you know where things went wrong. Let's reverse that. Let's go back to square one if needed. And the last one is just like keep open communication with the internal teams, with the STR
Mm,
teams. Especially, I know we have a lot of data. There are a lot of offerings, and at times that can be overwhelming. So we are always happy to geek out with our clients and help them parse through the data, and especially for like P&L data. Like we know that's quite a rabbit hole to go down into. So we are more than
yeah.
happy to help clients with that.
Awesome. Very, very good advice. The top three things to focus on. And with
Yeah.
that, it brings us to an amazing wrap of our episode today on Dojo Live. Thank you so much, Claudia, for sharing how revenue managers can go beyond the top line data to uncover deeper insights. I mean, we talked about optimizing pricing strategies, fostering cross-department collaboration, even, and all of that through smarter benchmarking. So before we go, if the audience wants to learn more about STR or connect with you and your team, how can they go about doing that?
They can find us on LinkedIn. We have a website, we have CoStar, we have blogs. Um, there's all sorts of data. They can find us at industry events. So
ITB.
yeah, ITV for sure. We have HTC, our own conference coming up in Nashville this August. So we're going to be sharing all the data possible out there with all the
Amazing.
insights, and also an opportunity to talk with all of us data nerds.
Oh, data nerds unite. I love
Data nerds
it.
unite.
Fantastic, Claudia. Thank you so much for joining us. I would also like to
Yeah, thank
thank our
you.
sponsor. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I think there might be a slight delay here. I also did want to thank our sponsor, Encora, for making these conversations possible. As a reminder, Encora does partner with leading travel and hospitality companies to accelerate innovation through world-class engineering solutions. And if you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow us on Dojo Live. We've got our website as well across a myriad of socials like LinkedIn, Facebook, X, as well as Instagram. And just a reminder, we've got one more show coming up this week, wrapping up our revenue series. So that's tomorrow, Thursday, March 6th, for the eighth and final episode. That's going to be with Alex Barros, who's a strategic accounts advisor for Bionics. He'll be sharing his take on, there's that magic word again, how AI, and Claudia, you're going to love this, data-driven strategies will shape the future of revenue management in hospitality. So see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific. Until then, stay curious, stay innovative, and bye for now.